Welcome back to Crime Podcast, hello everyone, and a very special welcome to all of our new listeners joining us for episode 2. Today, we are taking a deep dive into a case that gripped India and left the world baffled: the Burari deaths. So picture this: July 1st, 2018, a seemingly ordinary day in Delhi, but for the 11 members of the Chundawat family, it would be their last.
Yeah, and you know what makes this case so disturbing? Is that these 11 family members, they weren't just found dead in their home. They were discovered hanging blindfolded, gagged, and with their hands bound. It was a chilling scene, and it instantly suggested something more than just a typical suicide.
Right. It's those specific details that send chills down everyone's spines. And you know, it's important to note, this wasn't a family living on the fringes of society or anything like that. We're talking about a family that owned businesses. They were
Yeah.
known in their community. They appeared to be living very ordinary lives. So what could have driven them to this horrifying end?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, the Chundawat family, they owned a grocery store and a plywood business. They interacted with their community. They were part of the fabric of their neighborhood. And that's what made the tragedy even more perplexing. It wasn't a case of isolation or being ostracized or anything like that. They were seemingly well-adjusted, which just made the mystery even deeper.
Absolutely. So to understand how this seemingly normal family could meet such a tragic end, I think we need to take a closer look at the evidence, starting with the scene itself. So can you tell us more about the posture of the bodies, the blindfolds, the gags, the bindings? What do those elements tell investigators?
Well, the way the bodies were found, all displaying these similar postures, bound in a specific manner, blindfolded and gagged, it immediately pointed investigators towards a ritualistic element. You know, this level of orchestration, it just isn't typical of a standard suicide scenario. It suggested a premeditated plan, almost like a set of instructions were being followed.
And then there's Lalit Chundawat, who seems to be at the center of this whole tragedy. And investigators uncovered his extensive handwritten notes, detailing elaborate rituals and something called Bad Puja. So can you tell us about these notes and the significance of Bad Puja?
Right, the notes, they're really the crux of this case. They paint this picture of a man, Lolit, who believed he could communicate with his deceased father's spirit. And these Bad Puja rituals, as described in the notes, they involved hanging. In a manner disturbingly similar to how the family was found, Lalit seemed to believe that by performing these acts, he could appease his father's spirit and bring blessings and prosperity upon the family.
So it wasn't a death pact then, but rather a tragically misguided attempt at achieving a better life.
Exactly. The notes repeatedly emphasized that these rituals, as extreme as they were intended to bring good fortune, not death. Lalit seemed convinced that he held the key to a brighter future for his family, and that key was appeasing his father's spirit through these actions. You know, his notes weren't about ending their lives, but about improving them.
Okay. And it seems like the entire family, spanning different ages and personalities, they all bought into this belief system. So how could one person, even someone seen as a leader like Lalit, convince so many others to participate in such extreme rituals?
Well, that's where we step into the realm of shared psychosis. It's this rare psychological phenomenon where a group of people, often under the influence of a dominant figure, come to share a delusional belief. It's important to stress how rare this is, and that even when suspected, it's extremely difficult to definitively prove. But in the Burari case, the evidence seems to point in that direction. Lalit, with his perceived connection to the spirit world and his strong personality, may have become that dominant figure, shaping the family's beliefs and actions.
Yeah, it's fascinating and terrifying all at the same time.
Mm.
And it really begs the question, how susceptible are we to this kind of influence, especially within our own families and communities?
Well, that's a question we'll continue to explore in part 2 of our deep dive, so make sure you tune back in to uncover more layers of this unsettling case.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
You know, shared psychosis, it often arises in situations where there's a pre-existing vulnerability within the group dynamic. Think of it as fertile ground, where a seed of delusion planted by a charismatic individual can take root and spread. It's not about weakness or anything like that, but about a confluence of factors that make a group more susceptible to this kind of influence.
So in the case of the Chundawats, could there have been underlying vulnerabilities that made them more receptive to Lalit's beliefs?
It's certainly a question investigators considered. Family dynamics are complex, you know? There are often underlying currents of need, dependence, or a desire for belonging that can make individuals more susceptible to influence. Whether those factors were present in the Chundawat family, it remains a subject to speculation.
Right. And to add another layer of complexity to all of this, Lalit's notes, They weren't just some sudden burst of instructions. These rituals, this belief system, it seems to have evolved over time. I mean, he was meticulously documenting his thoughts and instructions for nearly a decade.
Hmm.
So what can we glean from that evolution?
Well, what's fascinating to me is the sheer duration of Lalit's note-taking. These weren't impulsive scribblings, but a carefully curated collection of beliefs and rituals that developed over years, examining that evolution, the language he used, any recurring themes, any hints about the family's changing mental state could offer valuable insight into how deeply ingrained these beliefs became.
It's almost as if the entire family was slowly being pulled into this web of ritual and belief,
Yeah.
culminating in that fateful day. And what's especially heartbreaking is that Lalit's notes actually hinted at a belief in divine intervention. They believed they would be saved at the last moment. They weren't seeking death. They were seeking salvation.
It's one of the most tragic aspects of this case, isn't it? They put their faith in a higher power, convinced that despite the extreme nature of these rituals, they would ultimately be protected. The level of trust they placed in Lalit and his pronouncements, it's both astonishing and incredibly sad.
Yeah. It really highlights the immense power of belief and the lengths people will go to when they feel they've found a path to a better life, even if that path leads them down a dark and dangerous road.
Absolutely. And it raises an important question about individual accountability within a group dynamic. To what extent were the other family members responsible for their actions? Were they victims of Lalit's manipulation, or were they active participants in their own demise? It's a question that continues to fuel debate and speculation.
So given the evidence, the ritualistic elements, Lalit's notes, and the possibility of shared psychosis, what was the official conclusion reached by authorities?
Well, after an extensive investigation, the police concluded that the Burari deaths were a case of mass suicide fueled by shared delusion. They pointed to the meticulous notes, the family's behavior leading up to the event, and the lack of any evidence to suggest foul play or external influence. However, even with this conclusion, there remain lingering questions and alternative theories that continue to cloud the case.
Right. Some people question whether there could have been an external influence, some manipulating the family from the shadows. Others point to inconsistencies in the evidence, suggesting that maybe, just maybe, there's more to the story than meets the eye. It's hard to reconcile the image of a seemingly normal family with the horrifying reality of their final moments.
And that's the crux of what makes this case so compelling, isn't it? It challenges our understanding of human behavior, of the power of belief, and the fine line between faith and delusion. It forces us to confront the unsettling possibility that even within seemingly ordinary families, behind closed doors, darkness can take root and lead to unthinkable consequences.
We've explored the chilling details of the Burari deaths, delved into the complexities of shared psychosis, and examined the official conclusions. But what does it all mean? What can we learn from this tragedy? Well, we'll tackle those questions when we return for the final part of our deep dive. So we spent this episode unhacking the unsettling details of the Burari deaths, a case that continues to haunt and intrigue. But as we reach the end of our deep dive, it's important to shift our focus from the specifics of this case to the broader implications. What can we learn from this tragedy, and how can we apply those lessons to our own lives?
Well, the Burari case. It serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of the human mind. It demonstrates how even seemingly rational individuals can be swept up in this tide of belief, especially when that belief offers a solution to their problems or a path to a better life.
Yeah, it's a cautionary tale about the dangers of surrendering critical thinking, especially to a charismatic figure, or a narrative that seems to promise hope or security.
Right. And it underscores the vital importance of mental health awareness, recognizing the signs of distress, seeking help when needed, and cultivating open communication within families and communities. These can be powerful safeguards against falling prey to extreme beliefs or harmful influences.
Absolutely. The Burari case, while an extreme example, it compels us to consider the potential consequences of untreated mental health struggles. And it reminds us that these struggles can affect anyone, regardless of social standing, education, or background.
Yeah, mental health doesn't discriminate. It's an issue that demands open dialogue, compassionate understanding, and readily accessible resources. Perhaps that's one of the most crucial takeaways from this tragedy, the need to prioritize mental well-being and create a culture where seeking help is seen as a strength, not a weakness.
Well said. We've journeyed deep into the heart of the Burari deaths, grappling with unsettling questions and seeking answers in the face of the inexplicable. It's a case that will likely continue to fascinate and disturb, prompting us to confront the mysteries of the human mind. and the enduring power of belief.
And perhaps that's the most enduring lesson of all, that even in the face of tragedy and uncertainty, the search for understanding must continue. We must strive to learn from these events, to apply those lessons to our own lives, and to foster a greater awareness of the complexities of the human experience.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Burari deaths. We appreciate you being part of the CrimePod Castle community.
It's been a thought-provoking exploration, and we hope you'll continue to join us as we delve into more captivating mysteries.
If you found this episode intriguing, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, leave a comment with your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives. Hit the bell icon to be notified of our next episode. Until then, stay curious, stay safe.
And remember, sometimes the most unsettling mysteries are those that hit closest to home.